Well, right as Russia began attacking Ukraine, Vladimir Putin declared war in a speech on national television. Let's take you to Western Russia now, which is right near the Ukraine border, where Mary Ilyushina is covering this part of the story for us. Mary, thanks for joining us again this morning. So we've heard a lot from Vladimir Putin over the last week or so, and certainly the tone and the mood of his speeches have become more intense and more, should I say threatening, or, you know, the language, it is the language of war.
Yeah.
Mary, what did Putin say in his speech, and what part stood out to you?
Well, what stood out is just how aggressive the speech is and was. So you're absolutely right. Like, his rhetoric stepped up pretty much each day this week. You know, he started earlier with just recognizing the separatist republics, and at 6 a.m. around Moscow time, he declared that he is going to send Russian troops to help them in what he says repel Ukrainian aggression. He said a lot of things that for a lot of people are kind of out of the realm of reality, because he said Russia cannot develop because it's so threatened by Ukraine, that Russian people are experiencing genocide by the Ukrainian government and what he calls a Kiev regime. Ukraine obviously denies that, and there's no evidence that Russians were under any sort of threatening conditions in Ukraine or Russian-speaking population there. And he also proceeded with what a lot of people thought is really stark warning aimed at the U.S. He didn't name U.S. specifically, but he did say that whoever interferes with his actions around Ukraine will see consequences that they've never seen in their history before.
So, Mary, Putin also said that he wants to, quote, demilitarize Ukraine. What does that mean exactly? And what do you read into that? You know, it is no secret that Vladimir Putin, for many, many, many years, has called the breakup of the former Soviet Union the most cataclysmic event in world history. I mean, he's talking about all of history from his point of view. And so I find that absolutely intriguing that he is still on about that. And when he talks about demilitarizing Ukraine, it's pretty chilling.
It is very chilling, and it's chilling because we don't exactly know what that means. The Kremlin spokesperson was pressed today during a press briefing, just can he explain what that means? And he sort of evaded the question. But, we can speculate that demilitarization means what Russian forces are doing right now while attacking Ukrainian military facilities, especially air bases. And to your point about Russian Putin's history views, they're quite revisionist in the sense that he basically denies Ukraine the right to exist. He says that Ukraine is not a real country, that it was created by Russia in the Soviet times. It seems like he doesn't even want it to exist near him, near Russian borders.
When we have been talking to you over the last few weeks or so and asking you about how Russians feel about this, the general sense was that Russian people didn't really believe there was going to be an invasion. And they kind of went with the Vladimir Putin, who just a few weeks ago was accusing the West of exaggerating and hyperventilating over all of this stuff and provoking, as a matter of fact. How do Russians feel now?
I think the mood is pretty down. A lot of independent voices are speaking out and saying they're just ashamed of the government actions. They're scared and they're terrified, and they want to show solidarity with Ukraine. But we've seen already reports that people who came out to protest outside to stand out against this action have been detained by police pretty much immediately. So it is very difficult for people to just express their opinion and, tell Ukrainians that they don't agree with this attack. Of course, it still caught everyone by surprise because I think people would actually go through with this. And this morning he did.
Yeah, and real quick before we let you go, Mary, you reported that Russia is trying to censor coverage of the attack. But I wonder, you have a lot of experience understanding what has happened in Russia over the last 10 years, the systematic silencing, in some cases imprisonment, in some cases worse, of Russian journalists. Putin essentially controls the press now in Russia.
Yeah, a lot of independent outlets have been just pushed out, or they've been declared foreign agents in the past year. Especially in 2021, we've seen just a huge attack against freedom of press here. One of the lawyers, who's very prominent lawyers who protected opposition leader Alexei Navalny, actually made a really interesting point today. He said, all of the repression that we've seen in the past years now makes sense, because I guess they have been preparing for this exact moment where they have control over the message and are trying their best to push out any other voice.
All right, Mary, stay safe. We appreciate your reporting as always. Thank you very much.
Thank you.